I think it takes a lot of work for ADHD people to identify their own operating manual, and they're all pretty unique.
It's probably a symptom of a bigger culture. And from a sociological perspective, maybe it's time we turn the diagnosis on the culture, the society, and stop just trying to treat the individuals.
If two race car brains with bicycle brakes are working together, it's gonna be chaos. We need a manager with a structured brain.
Because what you're looking for are these little systems to protect yourself from the problem side of it, but to leverage the benefits of it, right? It's like everything, there's two sides to everything. My greatest strength is my greatest weakness, right? My tenacity, that dog-like work ethic, can also get people, drive them crazy when I never give up.
All the other teachers looked at Kyle in this negative way because little did they know he was, I think, like one of the most special people in the room, probably.
So I truly believe that ADHD is actually, it's a superpower when it's managed. It's
Yeah.
a liability when it's unmanaged.
If you were to talk to someone at a dinner party and say, oh, I'm an ADHD coach, and they go, oh, what is ADHD? What would you say?
I guess I'd start with the basics. I mean, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, which, strictly speaking, is a collection of 18 different traits.
Mm-hmm.
And you can suffer from a couple of them or all of them.
Mm-hmm.
The number and type you suffer from would actually determine the type of ADHD you have. And then, in order to be able to actually get a diagnosis of ADHD, those symptoms or traits have to be having a significant negative impact on your life.
Right. And they have to be frequent in multiple areas, like at work, at home, at school.
Yeah. I mean, with kids, when kids are diagnosed, it's so much easier because you talk to the parents, the teachers,
Yeah.
and the child, and you get that triangulation of, these symptoms are happening in all situations.
Yeah.
Adults is a little bit harder.
Yeah, it's true. And at the adult stage, you've learned to adapt and you can mask them as well. You're a bit more of a chameleon. For me, I liken it to like water and the different states of water. So there is solid characteristics or traits like the impulsivity, which is, I love the word, the inability to say no. That is impulsivity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's that, oh, I shouldn't do this, but I cannot say no. You know, so there's a lot of impulsivity in ADHD. That's a pretty solid characteristic.
But the number one reason I believe that most people get diagnosed is for medication.
Okay. So, you know, the question is, do I medicate or do I not medicate? Pill or no pill? What's your opinion, or what's the parameters? What do you see?
I think it's really very much down to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
I personally went the pill route. Initially, I just went with whatever was recommended. Then I started becoming curious and actually changed my medication up to see if something could be more effective. Because just because something works doesn't mean it's the most effective medication for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally, I medicate some days,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't medicate some days. Depending on what I want to get done that day. If I want to be more creative, more free, then I don't medicate. You know, different people choose to do things differently. Sometimes medication can be used like a bit of a crutch. You know, you break your leg, you need crutches to get back on your feet and get walking again. But once you're up and running, you can throw the crutches away.
Mm-hmm.
Medication can be used that way.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can be something that people are on every day for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It really comes down to the individual.
My name's Jeff Tubbs, and I'm a singer-songwriter in a band here in Kelowna, and I'm also an amateur filmmaker. I had a super privileged upbringing. I grew up here in Kelowna. I had a beautiful family of 5, and yeah, I pretty much got whatever I wanted. I was kind of spoon-fed everything my whole life in a good way. Like, I had a really amazing upbringing. School for me was always actually really good. Like, I feel like I excelled in school. It was always great. I had a lot of friends, and I always had a great relationship with my teachers, and it seemed like the funnest thing ever, like going to school. Most people with ADHD struggle in the class situation. I think I was almost lucky to have the situation I had. I did everything. I did all the sports until I chose basketball, I think, in grade 12 only. But I was doing every sport I could until then. I enjoyed with basketball the team aspect of it, and all the relationships I've built from it, and like the road trips and the spending every day with these people, and like the sports aspect of it. The games were really fun, of course, but I think the biggest highlight for me was just getting all these close relationships and doing all these cool things with this team. That really felt like every year it would feel like this new family to be a part of, and I really loved that. Like my brother had ADHD, and he really struggled with the school system. Like he was failing all his classes. It was a miracle he even got out of high school and passed. It wasn't set up for him at all. And like he's a brilliant musician who could write the most beautiful songs you'd ever hear, yet he was failing his English class, for example. And it's actually a cool story. The way he passed grade 12 is he ended up having a really cool English teacher because he was flunking out and it was time for graduation. And my parents had to meet with them and try to like plead with them to make him pass. And through that conversation, she found out he was writing music, and she asked for one of his notebooks with all of his songs. And after she read his music, she said, "That's a pass, and he's good to go." So it was like this cool miracle. It was like because most of the teachers never gave him the time of the day, and that ended up being what saved him and graduated him. So it'd be cool. It was really cool that teacher had the mind, like the insight to do that for him. For my brother, I think there's so many people like him, where he was someone who had a really strong case of ADHD. My family was aware of it, but back then, like, I feel like it was almost hidden in a way, and I think that was almost a norm. But with my brother's case, like, I think he did what a lot of people do with ADHD now, and he's ended up self-medicating himself, and he found stimulants on his own, and he started abusing them, and it ended up taking his life. And I think like he's now just this number, a part of this growing stat right now. And it's crazy being so close to someone who's lost their life that way, because you realize like the individuality in every one of those numbers.
So a big topic I think a lot of people are interested in is ADHD in schools. From my perspective, I am a teacher. I've been in the school system for quite some time. I've taught at the university level and college level. So when I went into my doctorate, I basically had the question is, what is the relationship between ADHD, schooling, and land-based education? Just an anecdotal story, when I was taking some kids on a winter camp, the mom, at the bus, and the mom says to the son, like, don't forget to take your medication. This is prior to me being diagnosed. And so we get going up, and we're doing like snow quinzies and staying outside for the night. And that kid, I asked him like what medication. He said, oh, it's for ADHD. And then he's like, he didn't need it because outside he was like the firekeeper. He was super focused on just like keeping the fire on. And he had a job.
Oh, for sure. So when I work with clients like school-age children, they're struggling. They're getting punished for what is natural behavior to them.
Yeah.
Children aren't designed to sit for hours at a time.
Yeah.
Children need to play. They need to be free. They need to be able to express themselves. But I do have clients that struggle, and one of the recommendations is making sure they get on an IEP.
Yeah.
Because
so
that's
an
their
individual education plan.
Yes.
Which is a legal document.
And that's their opportunity to advocate for what their needs are.
Yes.
So if they need stretch breaks, if they've got different needs to other students,
Yeah.
that's where it gets placed, and hopefully that
Yeah.
enables them to function
Yeah.
more normally.
And there should be more experts in schools that are trained in ADHD. It's tied into funding too.
Depends where your schooling is.
Okay.
So my kids actually, for a long time, were in the Alberta school system. And once they had their IEP, when they went into the gifted school, every child there has an IEP or an IPP, depending where you are. And that means they automatically get extra funding. So in Alberta, special needs applies to both ends of the spectrum. So the very gifted and those that struggle. And so there was actually extra funding for those kids.
This cat has gone through so many near-death experiences and somehow managed to always make it on top.
I was born in Kelowna, and I was with both my parents at the time. And then when I was about 10, my mom had said, enough is enough. I'm taking Cheyenne and we're going to Dawson Creek. And that's where most of my mom's side of the family lied. So I got really close with my great-grandma, really close with my cousins. My mom had, she was like, no internet, no cable, which is honestly was the best remedy for my brain to be bored and think of awesome things that I could do. So I used it to my advantage, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. In that time, though, my mom, sorry. Ooh. But I never wanted to disappoint them. So I always wanted to be really good. And that motivation to make them proud was so strong. I'd always make sure the house was super spit and span for my mom when she got home from work, in the case of her leaving me alone. So I tried doing things that I did fall into music, which was great. Started out being a way to win my dad over. So when it got really bad, I had contacted the police, and then they put me in the ministry, and then that's where, on my own, around 16, I was put in this beautiful little basement suite, and it was right next to the vet, and it was right next to the ministry, and it was about a 10-minute walk from high school, so it was literally everything was in distance. And I had a bike to get to work as well, which was awesome. I had a lot of support from my peers and from my cousins who lived there, and from my great-grandma. And obviously the Ministry of Family Development, they were just amazing. So it was great to work with them in that time too. School was pretty effortless to me, I think just because I had other things going on in my life that was just consuming me in that sense, In high school, I was still able to manage effortlessly getting good grades, part of the theater group, which was just so much fun. It was the best class ever. It's as soon as you walk through the doors to the theater room, everyone was instantly themselves, and it was so funny because it's you didn't see that in the hallway, and I'm neurodivergence over here. So that's where a lot of my circle of friends came from too. So it was lots of fun.
I found that there was a lot of students that gravitated to my entrepreneurship program.
And presumably, they're getting to chase something they want to chase.
Yeah.
They get that creativity piece, and they get to focus on something they're really interested in, rather than just being told what they have to focus on.
Exactly. And my curriculum was, we're going to build a business, and here's the sort of milestones, and just come at it wherever you want. There was no textbook. I just checked in with them. And it was like one of those Google idea factories. There's little groups of kids working on, some would build a website right away, some would build their value proposition, some would, and they didn't have to work sequentially. Mm-hmm. They had freedom to just do it. And that, I would have kids in 3 days do a dropship business and make money in a week. If I would have held them back and said, now we're going to do your value statement, now we're going to do mission, now we're going to do vision. But I just let them open and gave them specific milestones, and they just went at it. They were just, and unleashed their creativity.
When you've got ADD, you're encountering failure every single day. I have 18 years of documented failure by a system. So when I become an entrepreneur and I fail, I'm like, no big deal. I'll try something different. I got 17 ideas anyway. My name is Cameron Harold, and I'm the founder of the COO Alliance and the Invest in Your Leaders course. I'm the author of 6 books, including The Second in Command and Vivid Vision. I've been paid to speak in 29 countries around the world, including every single continent. I'm the former COO of a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and I'm a father of 2 boys, 21 and 23-year-olds, and a happily married global nomad. We've been traveling the world for 3 years. All through grade school, I was told to sit still and pay attention and stop being distracting, and why couldn't I focus? Those were very consistent comments from kindergarten till I graduated university, barely. So that was a very consistent commentary. The time that I first realized that I was very different from the other students and knew that I wasn't paying attention on my own was grade 2. I was in Winnipeg, Canada. I remember sitting in a grade 2 classroom, and it was the first open air classroom in Canada where there were no walls between any of the classes. So you had grade 2 beside grade 3, beside grade 4. Sounds kind of cool, right? Holy disaster pants for somebody who's got ADD, because there's too many distractions, and there's big kids and there's pretty girls and there's like all this movement, and then I hear different teachers talking and I see these tall humans walking around. It was so much. And then I remember sitting at the back of this grade 2 classroom being a little bored with the teacher, which is a fairly ADD trait from my understanding. You learn quickly, you get bored of it, you move on, or you get distracted, so it doesn't make sense. I decided to go back and sit in the corner by myself and play chess while I was listening to the teacher. And the teacher came over and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm playing chess." And they said, "You're not paying attention." And I instantly repeated all the stuff they'd been talking about. And they just kind of looked at me and they're like, okay. So they went back and kept teaching. I knew I was different. I knew I had distractions, but I didn't identify it as a problem. I was just bored in her classroom. Grade 6, I remember being called into the principal's office and being told again, pay attention, stop selling stuff. I was selling stuff to a lot of the other kids in the classroom. Stop being so distracting, work harder, focus, all those common things. And they brought my dad in to meet with the principal. And I was sitting outside the principal's office. My dad was inside. The door was closed. And then all of a sudden I heard my dad scream, "There's nothing wrong with my kid. The problem is you." And he walked out and he said, "Come on, let's go." And we started walking home, and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're just like me." And he was trying to explain to the school system that I was perfect exactly the way I was. I wasn't supposed to be completely focused because I'd be missing all the other things. I feel emotionally abused by the school system for a period of from kindergarten until the end of 4th year university. I knew that I was smart, but the system kept telling me repeatedly, "You're not smart by the way that we're measuring you, and against all of your friends, you're not the smart one." It still messes me up, actually. Even at this age, where I've had all the successes I've had, I still have this a little bit of emotional insecurity. I still have this feeling of imposter syndrome. I still have this feeling like everyone else is smarter because that was the system I grew up in. But the problem wasn't ADD. The problem was the way I was treated. Why was I so successful at such a young age? I was trading stocks out of the newspaper at 16. Cutting class, talking to my stockbroker over the payphone in our high school, going back into class, running a side hustle business selling glasses or selling candy or selling stuff door to door. But the system was telling me I was stupid. So it's hard to recover from all that. Last night at a dinner in Kelowna, I took a group of 10 CEOs out for dinner, and one of the CEOs was deeply troubled by a child of theirs who is 17 years old that struggles with ADHD. And I said, "Do you think it is a problem?" And he said, "Yes, it's definitely a problem." And I said, "It's only a problem when your child thinks it's a problem." So for me, I think it's only a disorder if you believe it. But I then learned in life how it became a superpower. I learned why ADD wasn't a bad thing. It was exactly what was making me really strong as an entrepreneur. I think ADHD or ADD has really helped me as an entrepreneur because it allows me to see everything that's happening simultaneously. So I see what's happening with the customers, suppliers, employees, the market, the marketing. I notice problems with the website really quickly. I see little numbers on the spreadsheet that don't make sense. And because I'm seeing everything, I'm not missing anything in terms of running the company. But when I get so overwhelmed with it all that it forces me to delegate it and hire other people to move it forward, and that momentum creates momentum. So I think for me, entrepreneurship, ADD has been my superpower.
When you're looking at adults, what have you found when it comes to ADHD and the workplace and the interaction?
I think it all depends on the individual and the occupation they've chosen or fallen into. If it's something that really excites them, they do brilliantly. Mm-hmm. They're fantastic. But sometimes they're in a position where it doesn't work for them, or they got the job and it was great to begin with. They had the right skills, it's new, it's exciting, and they do really well.
Yeah.
Then it gets boring.
Yeah.
And they struggle.
Yeah.
And because they, for those that don't disclose their ADHD, they're masking. So masking is when you try to appear to be normal, but you're trying not to fidget in a meeting, or your mind's racing, but you're just sitting there quietly. And masking is exhausting.
Yeah.
And so you often see people burn out at work. And so you'll actually see ADHD people jump from job to job quite a lot, because it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting to move.
Yeah. And even there's a story of like entrepreneurs. If you want to get the best out of your ADHD person, maybe if they've disclosed it or not, put them on a project that has a mission, but it doesn't have the structure, and let them, just like a startup, like in entrepreneurship, let them start up something from nothing, build it, and then once it's built, you pass it to a manager. But ADHD people, once they get there, if they're still in charge of the project, they can start cutting corners. They're not as engaged, hyper-focused. They start this negative, cycle. They're not showing up to work on time. They're not giving it their best effort because they're bored, and then they can get fired.
Right. And again, that comes back to that piece on, we talked about with students, how they needed to learn themselves, understand what they need, and understand how they work and how they function.
Yeah.
And we need adults to do the same thing, so that in the workplace, they can communicate with their managers or their supervisors and say, you know what, I'm really good at this stuff, but I can't do that.
No.
I think a lot of employees are afraid. They're afraid that they will be judged if they're open about their ADHD, or they're afraid that they won't get the projects, or that they'll actually get fired because the company won't accommodate them. But I think it's important to point out that the federal government now recognizes ADHD as a disability. So you actually have rights
Wow.
as someone with ADHD. So the more you can disclose about yourself, the more likely you are to be able to be comfortable working where you are.
Well, this is a smooth ride.
Well, it gets bumpy in a second.
Okay.
It'll be okay. All right. My name is Kelsey Ramsden, and I'm currently teaching. I'm a professor at Western at the MBA school. I teach private equity and design thinking, so how to take a business idea and develop it into reality. When I've built my companies and businesses, one of the very first things that I do when I interview people or hire them is I'll say, here are 3 things that you will dislike about working with me. The first thing is, if you send me an email that's like longer than, this amount on my screen, or has more than 3 bullet points, it's unlikely I'm going to be responding to all of them. But if you send me 5 different emails, each this long, which would have been this in one email, I'll get through all 5 of them. So that's just a way of communicating with me, where you're going to get the results that you need, and I'm going to be able to respond concretely. The second thing I'll often tell people is, I'm either really in a thing or really out of a thing. So if it feels to you like I'm disinterested, it might just be a timing misalignment. So I'm deep into an Excel spreadsheet, and you walk in and you ask me to be creative. If I'm hyper-focused, I'm really not going to want to get out of what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that I'm not interested in doing what you want from me. It just means that the timing of it is going to be off. Like, let's find a time to do that. And the third thing is this idea of like integrating new ideas. We have to work together about communicating when that's turned off. Because I will continue to have new ideas. I will continue to iterate until the final moment. And for a lot of people, that's tremendously frustrating. So it's just identifying collegiately, like, okay, when do we invite this part of my, what's kind of genius about me? And when do we have to say, okay, Kelsey, that's, the time for that has concluded, and now we're into the deliverable process. Yeah, I think the self-actualization piece is paramount. Like, if people are unable to take responsibility for how challenging being in relationship or being work or being in any kind of collegiate space with someone who has ADHD, like the ADHD person has to say, here are the ways that it's challenging to be near and with me. And own that in a way that's also responsible for the way that the world works. I'm not fully diagnosed with ADHD. I have people around me who are blood related to me who are diagnosed. I share a lot of traits and qualities with them, so it makes it pretty analogous to having ADHD. I feel like because my observation of ADHD is people are on quite a spectrum, I've been able to manage myself with tools like, I can do breath work, I can eat well, I can sleep well, I can do a lot of things that I notice quickly if I'm not doing in the way that my brain functions. So I've been fortunate in a way that I can use a lot of things that are easily accessible to anyone to manage how I am. But I also feel like there is a piece of this kind of modernized culture around diagnosing things that scares me a little bit, because I think that my ADHD has been beneficial. But if you asked Kelsey in grade 12, you know, if you could take this away, would you do it? I probably would have said yes, because it was really hard for me. Like, to finish high school and get good grades was like a really difficult challenge. I think if I had taken away some of the key success factors, the KSFs that ADHD gives me, like this hyperfocus, this big creativity, this iteration ability, I wouldn't have ultimately been as successful.
I think it's the best thing anybody can do with ADHD in their life is to meditate daily. Even if it's for 30 seconds, tell yourself what you're grateful for, give yourself love, give the world love. Just kind of give it, I think it gives your life direction.
People with ADHD, we're human too.
Yeah.
We're not that different to you.
Yeah.
And so a little bit of understanding is a long way.
And it's very normal in the creative world. We see the artists and go, wow, they see something in such a beautiful way. We need to approach everybody else that has ADD in that same way, because we can't see the beauty until we actually decide to see the beauty.
And I found the value in caring for myself. After I'm medicated now and I have this routine and I've started to reap the rewards of healthy, consistent things I've been doing, I realized that I didn't feel I needed it anymore, and I weaned off of it. But I still had this support system of all these healthy routines I built, and now I don't need it.
Knowing what I know now about how my brain works, I can be much more forgiving to myself. There's that hyper-focused side of me. That's probably one of my superpowers.
That's both a good and a bad thing, but it works for me.
I think people who have ADHD who really want to get the results that they want just have to accept that this is an uncomfortable part. There's no way around it. There's no magic thing that makes it any easier. You just have to succumb to the nature of, this is what we have to deal with. So you just have to structure it.
Those guys, they've got a brand new house. Oh yeah, it still works. It still does.
It doesn't work now. It's
Derek?
There you go.
Dittos?
Sorry, I'm Irish, you know. You know.
My car would not.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, I chose the wrong way to go. Should we just pass it around?
Yeah.
I don't want to get too big.
Would you like?
Oh, there's a napkin.
Thank you, though.
So, thank you all for coming. I'm really grateful for everyone for showing up and your presence. I really wanted to build community, and so here we are. And it's an amazing thing to have ADHD, and it can be amazingly lonely, and it can be amazing in many different directions. So, my intent was to build community, and I think we're doing that tonight. And cheers to community.
Cheers.
Cheers.